In this video, we're going to talk about different types of animations that you can create in Blender. Some of these animations are actually simulations, so it means that they actually try to replicate what happens in reality. So we're going to see how we can generate some of those. Now, in the previous video, we talked about the basics of animation in Blender and also in other software. So substantially, what we do here when we want to animate and simulate something, we work with keyframes. We're gonna go keyframe by keyframe, deciding how our object will move and rotate, and also how our cameras will behave and move around the scene to create like walkthroughs or fly-throughs. And once we set up the keyframes, then all the rest it's automatically generated by the software. So we distinguish keyframes from interpolation frames, and we also saw that we have different interpolation types. For example, for this car, if I get inside here the curve editor of the animation and I select, for example, all those vertices right there, or those let's call it points or keyframes, if I right click and I change the interpolation type, that's going to become something else. This is going to be something more mechanic. It will not have ease in and ease out. It's just going to be like, I don't know, like an engine, a mechanic engine. So let me just quickly change from Italian to English. Okay, so I'm going to also go back and change a little bit these curves, these handles. So if I click there and just drag this handle like this will be a totally different fract from before. So this is gonna like rapidly come in and then slowly stop. So this is the effect on how we can manipulate these curves. Now the other way here I can do this probably is to do the opposite. So I'm gonna have here something like this, which is gonna be like fast. Well, actually I changed also the epsilon axis, so be careful what you select because you are actually working on x, epsilon and z, so everything you do here is going to affect the animation, so be careful on what you are manipulating. So here I just wanted z. You can see now it comes slow and then like accelerate and then suddenly stops, so it's another totally different effect. So by the way we change the interpolation type, we're gonna change the animation substantially. So you can go there and experiment a little bit. So you can change handle type, you can change interpolation mode, you can change also here right click, by the way, and you can change the easing type, so easy in, easy out, and so on. So you just need to experiment. Now the objective here that we probably want is to simulate reality, is to get as much closer to the reality as we can. So sometimes it's pretty difficult to do it with the keyframes and just using curves. So for example, if I need to simulate a bouncing ball, I would probably here create a standard animation, which is not gonna be good because it's gonna be like smooth and with the ease out and ease in, and change here like a bouncing curve. So this is how I would probably simulate a bouncing ball. But in Blender, we also have other tools for animations that can help us to make things a little bit easier. Now, before we get actually into that part, so we're gonna animate like a character, and also, as you saw at the beginning, we're gonna apply some physics, which they will actually generate a simulation. It's not a simple animation. They will automatically calculate like the physical response, the physical actions that are gonna be generated in our scene. Now, before we do that, let's check a couple of extra things and then we move into that topic. So previously we saw also how we can animate materials in terms of procedural maps, so we can simulate like waves and with the bump, and basically we can animate anything like lights, and any channel of the material can be animated like reflections or transparency and all of that stuff. But I want to show you some extra tip here, so I'm gonna go into a previous lesson, which was this one here, when we use a projector to project an image onto a wall. So if I press play here, I can see the effect, which looks pretty nice, pretty beautiful. Now we also use video to create a TV screen in another lesson, but this time I want to focus on this because when we use a light, an area light, like a projector, like we did in this lesson here, well, we can also use that as a video projector, not just as an image projector. So the only thing we need to do, just like we did in the TV screen, is to switch from an image to a video. So I'm gonna click on this folder here. I'm gonna get a video that I have in my folder, and I'm gonna upload it. And then I will just refresh this. So I'm gonna press play and stop. So you can see that we don't have an image. Now we have a video. And remember that all you need to do here, if you want to see it in the animation, is to be careful. Let's go into the material. We need to get here. So we need to go, into the light. And in this case, this is going to be a color applied to the emission because we are actually emitting with this light, with this area light, using this image. And again, if you don't know anything about this stuff, you should go back to this lesson here, which is lesson 19 of this course. So the most important thing here is that you activate the auto refresh if you want to see something here in the preview, and also that you increase the number of frames, because right now we are just using one frame of this video. So if we know now what frames are and how we can use them. So if I set, for example, 250, then I'm gonna have 10 seconds of this video in the animation that I'm gonna produce. And I can also decide the starting frame. So if I say, okay, I want this video to start at 50, also, well, let's say 200. So you can see now the position of this man here in the video and this car and everything. So if I press play again, you will see that this is changing. So it's actually rendering the animation right now. So if I render the total animation, as we saw in the previous video, we render the video or the image sequence, we would see this projector actually being animated thanks to this type of material. It's not actually a material, but it's just the emission channel into the light, but looks like a material. So the beauty of this is that you can animate also lights like they are, really complex with a lot of effects, just by changing here the mapping, the texture coordinates, and the animation. So you can also use procedural maps and animate them, and you can really play a lot with lights as well. So this is already kind of a simulation. We are trying to simulate a projector, how a projector behaves in reality. So let's go down into a new scene. I'm just gonna create a new one so you can start from scratch. So the first thing I would do here before actually using any simulation is to add some subdivisions. You can do that by going into the object mode, edit mode, right click and subdivide. So this is one way you can do that. But this is gonna leave this as a square, which is good if you want. Or you can create here another cube, go into the modifiers, add the modifier, and we're gonna add some subdivision modifier. Now, the other thing I want to show you here is that you have also forces and physics right here. So you have cloth, so you can transform this into a really soft object or to a particle system, as we already saw before. So before, let's actually apply the subdivision. So subdivision surface, and I'm going to increase the number of subdivisions. Now remember that each of that is going to be a phase, and usually when we create something, it's going to figure out the phases. So it's important not to have too many polygons and not few polygons. So you should have something in between, like this. Now we can also shade it, right click and shade smooth. And now let's apply something. Now the easiest thing you could do here, let me just create some copies. So if you have a 3D model, you can bring it in and try this, but the easiest thing you can do is create a simple object and test all the different physics and animation that you can get. Now if you go to object here, we will find a lot of interesting stuff that we already know partially, like transform and things like that. Now, if you go to the parent, this is where we can parent the bones, so the armature to the skin. So this is how we can animate a character, basically, and I'm going to show you that later. And where we can apply constraint, well, a lot of stuff here going on for animation. This is also where you can insert keyframes from here. And rigid body, I'm gonna talk about that also. But the first thing I want to show you is this one here, quick effects. Now you can add, for example, a quick fur to your object, so you can see there. Now about fur, hair and fur. Well, here you can just begin here, but you can like comb these like hairs and things like that. So this is just how to apply it, but you should, if you are interested on that, move on and check all the features of that particular particle system. Now this is considered a particle system in Blender. Now let's move on and let's go to object again and quick effects, and we can do quick explode. This is one of the I think funniest. So you can see your object exploding and then like falling off, like it's affected by gravity. And we're gonna see that after how we can play with gravity and collisions. So again, this is just one quick way you can start to experiment with these more advanced animation effects. And another really interesting here is the smoke. Now you can go down here and change this to smoke and fire if you want both, and then you press play. Now when you simulate, you cannot just go there and move around in your timeline, but you need to press play. This is what is gonna actually generate the simulation. So you cannot just go back and forth, but you need to press play and wait for the simulation to be developed and rendered by the engine. So once you're finished, you press pause or stop, and then you go back, and now you can see the animation real time or almost real time. If you check up here and you have the statistics or text info on, so if you press play, you can see the FPS. So you can definitely see if your animation is playing in real time or if it's going slower. You can see now that it's calculating is going to 8 FPS. So it's pretty slow, but just because it's calculating the animation. Once it's finished, this is kind of gonna be baked, and you can see the effect almost real time. Now this depends on your graphic card. There you go. And you can check here also the vertices and edges and everything else if you apply statistics.